Hello, and welcome to the Connected Platform stage here at the BIM Coordinators Summit 2023. My name is Carl Storms. I will be your host for this afternoon's festivities on the stage. I hope you're all having a good time today, whether you're here live or watching virtually. We have a great lineup for you today, and let's go ahead and just jump right in. So I'm also going to be your first presenter here today, so let me go ahead and get started. So, as I mentioned, my name is Carl Storms, the Technical Solutions Lead at Newforma, specializing in the Newforma Connect product. I'm going to be talking about the future of the AECO today, but more specifically, the fear, fact, and future part of the AECO industry. Just quickly, if anybody's interested in the slide deck, you can scan that QR code and have access to it, or take a picture and get it later on down the road. I'll try to show it again real quick at the end. But we have an action-packed lineup here today, so we're going to be flying through these presentations. I'll wait for all those obligatory screen captures and pictures to go off here in person, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So a quick agenda, what we're going to be looking at today, some introductions, that's me. But then the four things that we're going to be looking at are artificial intelligence, extended reality, robots, sustainability, and some final thoughts. Now, we have a slide here that says questions, but again, we're moving very quickly here today, so we'll hold those to the end. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump in. So as I mentioned, my name is Carl Storms. It is always super awkward to introduce yourself live or in person, so I have this handy-dandy deck that does that for me. So this is me. The short story is I've been in the industry for 25 years. I know it doesn't seem like I could be that old, but it's true. And I've done a little bit of everything in that time. But what we're really here for today is to find about the future of the AECO. So let's jump right in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is AI, or artificial intelligence. Been in the news a lot lately. So how can it help or hurt or make better the AECO? So we always want to start with, the fear. What do people think about AI? And for those of you that have seen the movie 2000 Space Odyssey, this is what everyone sort of thinks about, that it's going to take over. It's going to replace us humans, and it's going to do everything, and that's the fear. But the reality is that we're not quite there yet. This is making its round on LinkedIn. A lot of people have seen that. Hey, ChatGPT, do you want to finish our building? So there's some intelligence to artificial intelligence, but it can't do the job quite yet. So we need to make sure that we're there to help it along. We've all seen Jeopardy. This was very famous back many years ago now. This was 2013. But they had Watson from IBM that went on there and competed, and it was able, after finding some mistakes in its process learn enough to be able to actually beat the humans inside of the process. Well, that's expanded. It's now become what is called as Watson X, and this is an actual platform that you can use based inside of IBM to generate intelligence, or AI, inside of your platform. So this is something that actually exists today that we can use. We also can see things like ChatGPT, Baird, GitHub Copilot. These are things that add AI intelligence to a workflow that you can use. And what's really happening is these things can add some intelligence. They can, find you an answer very quickly. But the real goal, and what makes everyone in the industry better, is understanding how to ask the right questions. It's the prompts. It's understanding what to ask the artificial intelligence to get the proper answer. We can also see that a lot of things that come from artificial intelligence, there's platforms out there. This one's called Night Cafe. When I was doing my presentation, I said, hey, make me some icons for my presentation. And this is it. This is exactly what I got. No prompts, no anything. This is what it was. And they all seem pretty good. Sustainability had me question a little bit what was going on there. So I changed the prompts a little bit, and then we got a little bit more funky sort of look in here. Again, sustainability, the future the youth is our future, I think is what we're saying here. But again, you can see that we have the ability through artificial intelligence to do a lot of work for us quickly, but it's how you ask the question that really makes the difference. There's also this platform out there, it's called Scribe, and what you're seeing here is an honest-to-goodness post that I did. It took 23 seconds to make, and what it was is when AEC, BIM 360, came out with the ability to export a BCF file. I went in and I did the clicks, and it made this video and shared it with the entire world in 23 seconds, and it's completely accurate. And to this day, it's my highest rating post on any social media that I've gone through, and I didn't do it. The platform did it for me. So all it did was do screenshots, but it added the titles, it added in the captions. So all of the stuff that we don't like to do, it did very quickly for me. We have things like Alice. So this allows you to put artificial intelligence into your planning. So it understands that when you're doing a project, it says, okay, historically, these things can cause hiccups in your platform. So we're going to allow more time, less time. We're going to rearrange around it. And so that's where the artificial intelligence comes into play. We also have this thing, this came from LinkedIn. It's a weekly, or I guess monthly newsletter, but all the different things we have that somehow tie in with artificial intelligence that are part of our AEC community. And if you look, you'll see there's a lot of platforms some that are here today in our exhibition hall, and some that may be new, but that's the nature of this always evolving platform. So the future, and sometimes the future can be as scary as the fear. So does anyone know Sophie? She's the first Android intelligence that has actual citizenship in Saudi Arabia. And the idea here is that they're able to have a conversation. They can speak with you. But the fear part that comes from this is that we keep trying to make them look like people. And that's what causes the problems, because then we think, hey, they're going to take us over. Well, now we have a competitor, AECO, and this is more of a platform. This is more of a commercial endeavor. You can have the humanoid-looking face, but really it's putting artificial intelligence into a chatbot and using it in your system, off the shelf that you can do this. And we're getting more and more human-looking again, which is some of the problem. If anybody's ever been to San Francisco, this used to be, a thing of legends, but now you can actually go and get a Waymo One car, just like Uber, but there is no driver. This started out as Google X, and they put it through, so there's actually this service that you can hail that will drive you around the city, and there's no human intervention at all. So we've talked a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, but I think it's good to know behind it. AI is just a general term. A lot of the things that we've talked about here don't necessarily mean we're going to take over the world with the evil thumb in your mouth, but you can see kind of the stages, and we're sort of at the stage one, the machine learning, where we can teach a machine something, it learns what we're teaching it, and then it can regurgitate what we've taught it. Sort of the next step is when we get into machine learning, when it starts to understand what we've taught it, and then it can make inferences. It can sort of make its own decision on that. And then we move down to machine consciousness. This is, I've heard people say 10 years, I've heard 60 years away. We're a long way from getting to this yet, where the machine is making cognitive decisions. It's understanding a process and will give you a decision based on intellect. But we're also here as well. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of bad data. The idea that we don't have good data causes a lot of problems with this. So we need to keep that in mind and take that with a grain of salt when we wonder what's coming for artificial intelligence. So next we move into extended reality. And extended reality is all of the realities, augmented reality, virtual reality, all kind of mixed together. And the biggest fear, and this is a safe space, so we're all speaking honestly here, is we don't want to look silly when we're out there, making assumptions on our subway. We don't want to be looking at Tinders we're going through. But when we get to the fact, a lot of this that we're using for, a lot of gamers use this. Beat Saber beats me every time, but it's a lot of fun to play when we're going through. But as the technology gets better, we have the ability to improve that. And so just like we saw with all those different forms of AI, you can see that in the extended reality universe, we can have direct reality, means we're actually looking at that tree, versus the augmented reality where we can project that tree in the environment. We have augmented virtual reality. This is like the app where you look at something in your iPad that's not really there. We're projecting it into the iPad. And then we have virtual reality where everything's totally encased. Mixed reality, that became very popular a couple years ago, where you can kind of have both pieces of the puzzle. We can see outside of the headset and we can see inside of the headset at the same time. But we all started here with the Google Cardboard. We're all still worried that if we have a device on our face, we're going to look funny. We have the ability to have these in our little BIM caves or in our design offices, although we're getting closer and closer, not quite, but closer and closer to being able to remove all of those cords. So not being tethered makes it a lot easier. Some of the new devices, we can get really high quality renders without having to be connected. So we can do some of those architectural studies that we want to do and see those in place. And then, of course, we get into something like this. We mentioned where we can take a look at a flat 2D plan, have it projected into 3D. We can see that reality on our device in any way. AECO is a great product. And what this really shows you is that mixed reality that I'm speaking of. So as you can see in real time, he's using a headset, he's creating walls, he's adding different colors in place. But the real game changer here is that they're able to actually put in real walls and see through them. So you can not only see the model, but you can see the real world, and you can see it in color, and you can see that change. So you're able to really get that idea that, if I change this color in this actual setting with these real life conditions, it's really going to make a difference. And of course, we talked about the idea of augmented reality. We have the real world, and we see the artificial world inside of it. Of course, the future might be, Iron Man, we all have a headset, and it's all just inside of our head. It's probably more going to be like our world of working virtually, although the metaverse didn't go quite as well as we all thought. And hopefully we won't end up here where we're all in Wally world and we're just sort of floating along with nothing. We want to go beyond that. So that's a good segue into our next section, which is robots. Again, another one of those scary sort of ideas. The fear, everybody's worried that the robots are going to take our jobs. But really, that's not the case as we're going to see here. Maybe we just have the cat riding our Roomba. They're a little more gentle than we actually think. But just like with artificial intelligence, where the goal is being able to prompt, the idea of knowing what we want the robot to do and have it replace tasks that we as humans don't want to do makes a lot of difference. And it's probably going to look a little more like this, where we have the big machines, the big arms that are building all of the robots, or not the robots. Then we're in trouble when they're building themselves. But we have the machines building the cars. But you can see they can do other things. There is a video out there, an entire 4-minute video where they play an entire song that drums the whole thing. I highly recommend we're seeing it. But then we have robots that actually do things in our industry. So we have Sam, which actually allows you to build a brick wall. Now, it doesn't do it by itself. You can see there's a helper there that loads the brick. There's also a helper that looks after all the mortar. But those same two people doing the same amount of work, it takes 4 times as long. So the machine speeds up the process and prevents the injury from the bad back. We have Canvas here that actually allows you to mud, tape, drywall. So it's not putting the drywall in place, but it's mudding and it's taping it. We have things like Dusty Robotics that allows you to 3D print. This is, you buy the robot and it prints for you. There's a service called Rugged Robotics. Same thing, but that's a service. They come with the robot and do it for you. HP, they just got into the game, so you know that there's some traction with the ability to print your plans on the site. And of course, who can forget our friends at Boston Dynamic and Spot, the wonderful dancing and the weird snake-looking head. Again, the thing they did right here is it doesn't look like a person. So while it is kind of creepy, we're not as intimidated by it. And we call it Spot. We all know it's the nice dog. But the idea behind the singing and dancing is they had these promotional videos that said, hey, we've got this robot, we can put a scanner on it, say we can do all these great things, but we also have this attachment that allows it to open doors. Well, that's all well and good promotional videos. We all know what those are about. But just recently, so Brian Ringley, who works there, he's in charge of sort of the showing off the division. In Ontario, they bought a few of these robots and they tested them to be able to live change a circuit. So when an entire power station goes down, they would have to shut down the power station. They have to get safety in place because those breakers are, if it's not done right, you can have electrocution problems. So it took them 3 months to walk through the process of training Spot, but they now can send a robot in to live switch those big breakers with, if there is a problem, injury to the robot, but they can do these without people being harmed, and they don't have to shut the whole system down. So this is one of the first real use cases of using the snake head, as I like to call it, but the idea of using that robot in an unconventional location. Of course, the future, what's coming next? The famous evolution, but we have it with robots, if everything is moving forward. This is another example. So now we're not just mudding and taping the drywall, but we're actually having these robots that can pick them up, move them, put it in place, do the entire work. Again, that humanoid form that puts it all in place. Of course, there's always the dark side, We now have a robot that can check that I'm not a robot Spots. A little bit of levity here to keep it in place, but of course, that had to be programmed to do that. Now, the last piece of this puzzle, the last piece of the 4 things that I chose to talk about here today is maybe a little controversial, and that's sustainability, because sustainability has been something we've thought about and has been around for a long time, so why is it this new future of AECO? Well, it's because we talk about it much more. And the fear is that everyone just figures, well, it's okay. It's just a cycle. everything will get better. We don't have to worry about it. And that's a legitimate fear. But what we have to do is we have to work past that. And so the fact from our friend Kermit is that it's not easy. And this is the problem. This is why people think it's fine as it is, because making it better requires a lot of work. We have to change our habits. We have to change what we want to do. People don't want to change. But ways that we're doing that in the industry is we're using different materials. Mass timber is very popular in Canada, where I'm from. Solar, we're doing that. Cleaner energy. In Singapore here, we see we've got the living buildings that we have in place. We're using wind to be incorporated into it. And salvage has become not only trendy and cool to have, but the idea that we can actually reuse material has become very big. We've had people stop by the booths today asking about that and how we can bring that into our workflow. Smart buildings. This is more for the owners, for the own point, but the idea of when we put all of this IoT devices and all of these intelligence inside of our building, not only can we do preventative maintenance to make the building last longer, but we don't have any outages. We can be more sensitive to when our lights are on or off, how much HVAC we're using, how much heating and cooling, and all those things can be run, and we can have data. We all know that data is the gold nowadays. We want to have that information to know how the building runs, when people come in and out, all of that information. And all of that leads to a more sustainable building. We have things like Fenestra Pro, and the idea here is it's an add-in that goes into your modeling software that allows you to really design properly how we can have the fenestration on that building work. Do we need to put a little bit more to the south? Do we need more shading? Do we need less? And all that can run directly inside, in this case, Revit. Inside of that is an add-on to make sure that as we're early on in the process, we're designing that properly and making sure we have all the right information in place. We have websites like we see here, 2050 Materials. This is a free website anyone can sign up for. And what it does is it allows you to compare and contrast many, many different materials for how close to you can it be sourced, how is it made, how is it for your carbon footprint, all these different things so you can make an informed decision about how you want to put material on your building, how long is it going to last, how long is it going to stay in the environment. We also have Circulus. This allows you to test your embedded carbon. Carbon is also a very hot topic these days. How much carbon do we have in it? How do we do that? This is a website. You log in, and you're able to run your entire project through it and get ideas of what you need to do to offset that carbon. So the future of sustainability. So Carbicrete. So this is a product that's being developed in Canada now, in Quebec City. And what it does is it actually allows them to create a CMU without concrete. It's metal slag. It's 30% less the cost. It's actually carbon negative. So a regular CMU takes 2 kilograms of carbon to be made. This saves or takes away a kilogram of carbon when it's being made. And it's also less money. So the idea is like, why isn't everybody doing this? Well, it's still early stages, and it takes a little more to actually produce them. So the build-up site to automate that is in place. But the idea is that there's a way out there to get something that is stronger, easier to build, or quicker to build, and better for the environment as far as carbon that can be built without the cement. Now, as far as the future sustainability, it actually incorporates everything that we talked about. So the AI in those smart buildings is going to make things easier, more sustainable. We have the ability to use things like our virtual reality inside of that when we're designing them. And then, of course, we have the robots throughout that whole process. But in the end, what it really comes down to is the fact that everyone has to pitch in, even if they don't enjoy it. Because is there anybody here that likes paper straws? Not a single hand goes up for the use in the virtual world because they're not good. But the idea is we're doing our bit to help the environment. So final thoughts to bring this all together and to bring us home is the job site of the future, thanks to our friends at Autodesk here, is going to look a lot different. And the idea is that we're going to be using sort of things like drones. We're going to be working from home, which we all become accustomed to, but the idea that we have autonomous vehicles, we have autonomous robots, we have the ability to understand all of this data inside of that. So we're going to take all of this technology that we've learned about in this brief presentation and kind of bring it all together. Of course, if we're worried about the evil takeover of our robots, I'll leave it to our friend from Dilbert. But back to our friends from Boston Dynamic, we remember they had those cartoons or those videos where they were pushing down the robot to show its sustainability, but people were upset because they were pushing the robot. This kind of plays in that vein that, we're going to do some testing on that robot, but if we don't give it access to the internet, then we're fine. And so we're going to leave questions to the panel. I thank you very much for your time today here. And we're going to have a minute here before we bring Eric to the stage.